The villagers of Exeter, Rhode Island knew that resident George Brown's family had a curse. First, in 1883, his wife Mary Brown died from a mysterious illness. 6 months later, his 20-year-old daughter, Mary Olive Brown, also fell ill and died. Within the next several years, his 19-year-old daughter, Mercy Brown, was also dead, and George's teenage son, Edwin Brown, a healthy kid who worked as a store clerk, suddenly laid on the brink of death. This not only struck fear in the Brown family, but the village was in extreme panic. It seemed that all his relatives had been dying from what the doctors called consumption. But fancy medical terms didn't fool the country folk of Exeter, for they had another explanation. This was the work of a vampire. On a brisk evening in 1892, a group of men entered the Chestnut Hill Cemetery. They were on a hunt to end the family tragedy. They began to exhume the bodies of George Brown's wife and 2 daughters. The town was swirling with rumors that one of the deceased was leaving the grave at night to suck the life out of its relatives. Only by killing the vampire could the life of George's remaining son could be saved. First, the men examined the bodies of Mrs. Brown and daughter Mary, finding them to be properly decomposed. Then they began to exhume Mercy Brown. Slowly they broke into Mercy's grave. When they reached the corpse, they suddenly stepped back in terror. Mercy, who had been entombed for more than 2 months, appeared oddly well preserved. It seemed that her hair and nails had grown, and when the men cautiously prodded the corpse with a shovel, they found that it was filled with fresh blood. The ashes were mixed with water and to create a tonic and was given to the sick Edwin to drink as an effort to stop the influence of the undead. Still, the boy died less than 2 months later, and the New England vampire panic lived on.
There is nothing wrong with your radio. Do not make an effort to modify the volume. We are commanding the broadcast now. If we desire to make it louder, we will adjust the decibels. When forecasting the difference between reality and the extraordinary, perhaps it may not be as simple as it seems, because the world you think you know may not actually exist. Now, let's begin your journey into the Creepcast Terror Files.
What's up, creeps? It's Jason, and I'm here with JDK. Ooh, good name for today, by the way.
Great name for today.
Yes,
fitting, proper.
Yeah. And we're back for another Terror Files, and we're getting ready to talk about the New England vampire panic. And this is maybe hits home because that's where you're from.
Bullseye, baby.
Yeah. I love the story of Mercy Brown, which you just heard a little synopsis of that. But we want to talk a little bit more about, I guess, the sweet science behind consumption and what caused this panic throughout New England, and I would say even past New England, because I don't think tuberculosis, because this is what consumption really is, I guess, was just limited to Connecticut and all that stuff, right? Rhode Island. So what is it? Right? Well, let me talk about this real quick about the outbreak, Justin, and we'll go from there.
Okay,
a little bit.
Take it away.
Yeah, so the New England vampire panic was kind of like I said, it was a reaction to an outbreak of tuberculosis in the 19th century and throughout Rhode Island and just other of the New England states, right? Consumption was thought to be caused by disease consuming the life of their surviving relatives, which is amazing to think about that, right? That's like let me throw this out real quick. What year did I just say? Like 18, right?
Yeah, 1892.
So this is not, we're 100 years removed from this, right? And
Right.
change. So this is not like we're talking 1600s on this, man. This is, you think science will be a little bit more up to date?
For sure.
Or is science wrong right now? Maybe it was vampires.
We'll find out.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So an attempt to protect the survivors and ward off the effects of consumption, bodies of those who have died and of the disease were like exhumed, right, and examined,
Sure.
Like we talked about on the intro. The corpse was deemed to be feeding on a living if it was determined that it'd be unusually fresh, especially if the heart and other organs contained liquid blood. After the culprit was identified, there was a number of proposed ways to stop the attacks. Most of these methods were simply just turn the body over in its grave, or in other cases, families would just like burn the flesh or the fresh organs, and kind of rebury the body. On occasion, the body would be decapitated and all that stuff, and then affected members would also inhale the smoke. of the burned organs or consume the ashes, like the Brown family did, right? Edwin Brown,
Right.
in an attempt to cure consumption. Now, let's talk about consumption real quick.
Okay.
Or tuberculosis as we know it today. What does it do? So imagine this disease, all right? We're 1800s, fucking living on the farm, right?
Yep.
Whatever.
Exactly 200 years, by the way, after the witches.
Yes.
So to the date.
So there's already a mystique, right? There's already, we got rid of the witches, all right? Or that witch panic's gone. But yet now, why are people just, because like tuberculosis or consumption is a slow roll death. Right, you don't just die immediately. This is like over months, sometimes years, and it just slowly eats your body away. You start frothing up blood or white phlegm, or even like a foamy blood, right? And sometimes I even heard that it's like a black blood coming out of your mouth.
Yeah, no, you said it best, man. It's a very slow death, and not one that I personally would enjoy. I'd rather quickly.
Yeah, and your body starts losing weight, like I say a cancer patient would or whatever. It's ice sinking in. So it kind of looks like, yes, at night or whatever, you wake up in the morning and someone has been feeding off your body, right?
Right, and think of the toll it takes on your loved ones surrounding you, right? Like, you're kind of killing them as well.
100%,
you know.
And then if a doctor can't pinpoint what the fuck's going on this, right? So you go to lore, right? You go to folklore, and it has to be fucking, it has to be something that is sucking the life out of my children here, my wife, and all that stuff, right? Now let's talk about Mercy Brown. Now, the mother, Mary Brown, right, and the actual daughter, Mary Olive Brown, both of them fell ill and died years prior, okay? And so when they went and actually dug them up, okay, because now eventually this is it. They can't figure out why is the whole Edwin family, or the whole Brown family dying. Now you got Edwin dying here, his son, and all that stuff. So they went and reading about this. They dug up Mary first, the mom. And she's been buried for years. And so enough, boom. I heard the dad couldn't be there, right? He's like, this is fucking too much. Which is kind of wild, right? I get that. I'm like, you're digging at my family just to go see if they're vampires? I don't know how I'd feel about that.
You're pretty upset.
Yeah.
Pretty upset. Especially when you see these methods that go 0 to 100. Either they rotate your body.
Yes.
Or they just straight up decapitate the body. I mean.
Fuck, yeah. So they dug up Mary, and all they found was what you'd think you'd find after years and years is just a skeleton, pretty much, with maybe some mummified skin, right? Okay, rebury her. Sorry about that, Mary. Now they go to Mary Olive Brown, which is the 20-year-old daughter, and she's been maybe a year or so already dead. Same thing, right? Just clumps of hair, fucking skeletal remains, and all that.
Sure.
Well, now they went to, now it's time to dig up Mercy, right? Well, Mercy died at the beginning of the winter. Now, I don't live in New England. You did. I heard it's really hard to fucking dig in the ground, right? The ground get frozen for like 5 months or something like that.
Right. They basically postpone funerals and your arrangements. Yeah. And they'll stick you in basically what's a mausoleum.
Okay.
It's to best explain it. You know what I mean? Which basically preserves your body, but it delays it until maybe spring weather.
Until you get the ground
arrives, and they'll place one of those cool headstones.
Sure.
Just, this is where you will be.
Yeah. So that's what they did. They threw, and in fact, today, Mercy Brown's tomb still exists, right? It's still there. And I saw a picture of it, and it's just like this big rock pile with a wooden door on it.
That's right.
It's the most fucking Evil Dead looking thing you've ever seen in your life, right? So they didn't have to dig her up. They brought her out after a couple months, and holy shit, it was like the panic happened because her fingernails have grown. Her hair is grown, right? She actually had, like, her body was really, really well preserved. Now, doctors are like, of course, it's like put them in a cooler. Right? But once again, you're in the 1800s. You don't know this shit, right? There's no WebMD. There's no Google to go check out what's going on here, right?
Right.
Yeah. So
for those of you maybe that perhaps are listening to this and, struggle with hair growth and all these kind of things, maybe we forget the cosmetic surgery that's around today and we just go take a winter-long nap in New England.
How about that?
Perhaps you'll fare better.
Exactly. So they brought her out, and they're like, holy shit, this is our vampire. And so they cut up on her chest, man, cracked that rib cage, and checked out the heart. Well, the heart had... I guess like dry blood. Wait, that's the word I'm looking for. Coagulated.
Coagulated.
I can't say the word. It had some blood in it, right? And just, I think because of the actual, it's been preserved. That was all they needed. Because once we mentioned before, vampires, once you find a bit of blood in their hearts, that's a vampire, right?
Sure.
After death. And so they literally cut her out, cut the liver out, cut the heart out, and right there outside her tomb, lit a fire and rendered that down and used it put it in a tonic to feed her brother. Dude. What the fuck is going on, dude?
What was happening in New England, by the way, man? Okay, because and why is it always a family, right? There's always the one family in this little tiny neighborhood, by the way, and it happened with the witch shit too.
Yeah.
And then it's like the devil basically consumes, and in this case, the vampires consume.
Yeah.
And I don't know, dude, what a trip.
All I picture is this is all I picture. I mean, being say my family's half dead, right? Half of them all died
tragically, by the way.
They're digging up my sister. I'm laying in bed and I'm seeing. Here's the scene. You ever seen Salem's Lot?
Of course.
Outside the window at night, I would be fucking petrified.
Terrified.
Just waiting to see my sister fucking floating out front to come fucking consume me, right?
Right.
I mean, this is nightmare fuel right here. So,
it is.
But, as we think today, this is make-believe, this is, whatever, folklore. Back in the 1800s, this was legit.
And this was day to day.
This is going to happen, right?
Sure.
A couple hundred years ago, we had witches that were fucking killing us, right? Or whatever, cursing us and all this stuff. Now I have vampires. What the fuck's going on in New England, buddy? But yes, of course, a lot of people say, hey, she had blood in her veins. She had all this stuff. It wasn't decomposed because of the winter, right?
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I'd love to see a weather report. Maybe it was a mild winter, and I'd like to see that. Or was it the worst winter ever? And of course, she's going to be frozen.
For sure.
But this is not the only case. There's been about 80 actually documented cases of people getting dug up or reaching all the way back to like the late 1700s. And most of them were concentrated in the backwoods of New England and all that stuff, ranging from witch hunts from the 1690s, to the late 1800s. But hundreds of more cases are waiting. So in other words, this is not the 80 plus that we have documented.
Sure.
Or just the fucking foot in the door or the crypt. You want to say.
I like it.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is nothing new in New England. I think I told you about my buddy Coffin Rob,
who
is still very much in New England currently, and good luck finding him, digging up corpses and stuff. So it's his job.
I like it.
But I feel like, to hear it in the 80s?
Yeah.
That's a very large number.
That is huge, right? And that's a lot of family members getting dug up. I mean, it's just a lot of that disease going around and all that stuff.
For sure.
In fact, Bram Stoker, obviously you guys know, author of the novel Dracula, he knew about Mercy Brown's case through newspaper articles and all that stuff, and actually based the novel's character Lucy up after Mercy Brown, which is pretty rad if you guys are familiar with Dracula and all that stuff. So, but listen, I have some notables, though. I have some other ones that people getting dug up because of this New England vampire panic, which is pretty rad. It should be it's like a band name, man, or something, right?
Okay, Mercy Brown, I'm a big fan of her band, and I'm thinking about this as you're talking.
Yeah.
Like, we need to jump on this quick.
Okay. So in Rhode Island, right, at the Historical Cemetery number 2, I love how they just name it, right? Yeah. Number 2. I'm at fucking Historical Cemetery number 2.
But there's many graveyards.
Yeah. Stands a gravestone from another alleged vampire, Nellie Vaughn, who died, once again, 1889 at the age of 19. So same thing, right? I'm pretty sure consumption or something like that. But the grave is supposedly cursed, if you ask the locals there. One local university professor who studies vampirism says that no vegetation will ever grow on Nellie's grave, right? Despite numerous attempts to plant there, man, which is, okay, now explain that. Right?
Nellie was a carnivore. Very anti-vegetable.
Yeah, I guess so. But people are still taken back by the inscription along the bottom of Nellie's tombstone, which, guys, you can go there and see right now. And the words say, "I am waiting and watching for you." Right?
My hairs just stood up.
Holy shit, dude. Okay, when I die, Justin, if I'm older than you, so I'm going to die first. So make sure shit like that's on my gravestone, because I want people talking about my shit, right?
Yeah.
And I just love that fact, though. Okay, why does no vegetation grow there, right?
Right.
And then when you put an inscription, "I am waiting and watching for you," on your grave. The fuck out of here,
Dog,
dude.
can you here lies Jason Spore. I am waiting and watching for you. Holy shit, dude. I would never visit you.
Oh my God, it'd be amazing. So that's something I need to visit. If you guys are in Rhode Island, go check out Historical Cemetery number 2 and check out Nellie Vaughn, right? I want to talk about a guy named John Barber. This is out of New London, Connecticut. So back in, I think it was early 1990s, there were some children playing in a gravel pit that they were playing around. You know how kids do.
Sure.
And they unearthed some human skulls. Okay. Which is lucky.
Yeah, seriously. Imagine being that kid.
My whole childhood, I'm digging up shit trying to find real human skulls.
Sure.
And these little bastards get it, man. So, but this led to discovery of an old farm burial ground. That belonged to the Walton family. And this goes back into the early 1800s. I want to say like 1840, right?
Right.
Now, most of the skeletons were unmarked and all that stuff, but one coffin was marked with a JB55.
Oh, that's my initials.
Oh shit, it is.
Oh, shit.
And these are on tacks. These are nails that they put on the lid of this coffin. And then, so boom, they open it up. The skeleton appeared to be exhumed and reburied approximately 5 years after death, okay, with its head and femurs removed and placed on the chest in the manner of a skull and crossbones. The rib cage has also been broken open, right? And probably, I'm guessing, to remove the heart.
Sure.
What the fuck, dude?
Maybe that's
what is going on in New England, man?
I don't know, man. Witches, vampires, lobster rolls. It sounds like a pretty rad place to be.
Oh my god!
And
dude.
by the way, that's the most. What was the name again that you just read? That was John Barber.
Yeah,
and then the one prior to that was
that would be
Nellie Vaughn.
Nellie
they are the
Vaughn.
most New England names I've ever heard.
100%, right?
So, yeah,
and,
but
and this is the lore I love. This and that. So so once again, you can go. Well, I don't know about John Barber's. I don't know if you're allowed to go on that land or whatever, but Nellie Vaughn, absolutely go to her grave, right? It's a supposed vampire. And same with Mercy Brown. That tomb still exists, to go visit that. I just, once again, hair standing up in my fucking arms right now thinking about this shit.
I am waiting. I'm waiting here, watching for you. Like, come on, man.
Right?
God.
So whether you believe in vampires or not, whether you believe in science, it was tuberculosis, I don't know. I think there's something more to this, man. I do think there is something that was a lot of the lore that we've been pushing out on these shows. Is it too much of a coincidence this happened? I don't think scientific explanations cover all the bases on this, man.
I do think the neighborhoods in that time frame, it's late 1600s to the late 1800s. I feel like those little neighborhoods, you could kind of see them visually in your head, right? They're very tiny.
Yeah.
I feel like they were pretty diabolical, though, right? Like, anytime they had the opportunity to just be like, burn them, kill them, this, that, they do it.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
for sure.
Burn them, from burning them to ripping their hearts out.
To decapitating
their corpse.
Imagine opening that fucking John Brown or whatever that
Yeah.
I'm sorry. John Barber.
John Barber.
His grave, and then looking, there's his coffin, and seeing a fucking skull and crossbones on his chest, and that's just. That's what New England lore should be, right?
For sure. I would love it if there could be a possibility of everybody just getting maybe consensus of 100 graves to dig up and just see. Let's just see. Random. All randomized in graveyard number 2.
But we can only dig up at night on a full moon in a foggy New England. That got me excited. So, all right. We want to put a stake in this heart and closed another episode of the Terror Files.